So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our first Star Speaker session of the 2024 conference. This session will be with Nick. And as always, with every association event, our code of conduct is in place. And as always, please treat other with respect, which I have no doubt that is exactly what you will all do. So this session is going to be recorded and it will be used to play back and for sort of promotional use from the conference. So if you wish to just turn your cameras off, that's not a problem at all. We do ask that you keep your mics muted whilst Nick is talking. We have a couple of questions at the end that have already been sent in, and then we will take some questions from the chat. So this is Nick Elston. So he's known for his dynamic approach to speaking on mental health, combining lived experience with practical strategies to engage and inspire his audiences. And I'm really excited for this session because it's something that's very close to my heart. But Nick will be talking to us for roughly about half an hour or so on how to forge ahead a lived experience mental health playbook. So Nick, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me do the whole screen share thing. Talk about anxiety, right? Okay, so hopefully you can now see the slides on my face. Can I just get a yes on that, if that's okay?
Yeah, we can see you.
Cool. Apologies for the face, it's the only one I have. It's the reason I've got a beard. My wife says I look like a potato when I'm shaved, but there we go. So my name is Nick Elston. I'm an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health. I promise you it's a proper job. It's been my job for the past 10, 11 years now, sharing my experiences of mental illness and mental health challenges to help increase engagement in the initiatives and solutions and practitioners that are out there. I am not a coach, a counsellor, nor your guru, and nor would you want that in your life. Trust me, I'm far too empathic for that. But for me, the gap is the engagement. Why is it that when we need help, we don't reach out for help? And that's the bit that I kind of live in. With my other cap on, of the millions I own, I'm also a transformational speaking coach. It ain't presentation skills, as you're about to bear witness to. It's about changing our narrative in life to change our experiences. And I do that in lots of different environments, not just in education, but it's a big part of what I do, but also with L&D organizations, businesses. I coach prisoners' public speaking skills as a transformational tool. I also do the same in the education system. I work with frontline environments, and I'll also do a lot of media work here in the UK and Europe. I work with BBC, ITV and Sky. In the US, I work with NBC, delivering that lived experience angle alongside solution-focused people. Why? Actually, it's because we engage with storytelling, with humanity, with lived experience far easier than we do with solutions, especially at the point of needing solutions. But my crowning glory to date has to be host and creator of KFC TV, 6'4", 24 stone, hosting a fried chicken TV station. I trained all my life for that gig, trust me. My business is called Forging People, and it came from a line of my early talks, and it's a whole concept of why we're doing this today, that in life we can either allow our adversities and our challenges and all the things that we experience in life to negatively impact us for the rest of our days. That is a choice. Or maybe we can choose them to forge something better, to forge something beautiful, to forge something powerful, something that wouldn't have existed without going through your stuff in the first place. But for me, that's kind of where it starts to make sense. Because my own experiences and the reason why I do what I do it comes from mental illness. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, which I developed in my childhood. And the solutions and the awareness now around OCD certainly are far better than they were back in the day. I am that old. So as I got older, it morphed into something on top of OCD called generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. That's what's later diagnosed as. And essentially, that's obsessive compulsive anxiety. It's heightened anxiety. And I guess therein lies the reason why I do what I do as a lived experience speaker and not a solution-focused person, because I believe you can get the bullet points of diagnosis, the list of high anxiety symptoms online anywhere, NHS, Mind, Mental Health UK, but you don't really understand how things feel until people share their experiences. So for me, high anxiety, do you constantly ruminate on things that have gone wrong before? Past relationships, past decisions, past conversations, and you replay those things with a very real and very current feeling of guilt or remorse or regret or anxiety. And you see it changes your narrative enough to start to catastrophize what's to come. So you wake up that feeling of dread and anxiety about and constantly assuming worst case outcome. But the kicker for around high anxiety is you could be highly successful, highly performing, and highly functioning as a highly anxious person. So in education, I was top grades in every class. I was head prefect in every school. I was successful from the outside looking in. But for me, it wasn't success. It was survival. I found it very early on in life that people pleasing is a fantastically effective mechanism. Utterly destructive, but fantastically effective to try to be everything to everyone. And I think it was that kind of formative period going through education with mental illness that actually started to kind of be the foundation of my adult professional life. So in my professional life, I was always in client facing and colleague facing roles. I learned far too late in life that I was an introvert working in an extrovert's world. Interesting, given my choice of career now. More on that later on. And for over a decade, I was running at a high state of burnout, which I think burnout's a very commonly used term now, but if you're not familiar with it, it's where your output consistently beats your energy levels. So always kind of running at a high state of burnout. And after 10 years, I had a breakdown in 2012. And it was at that point I started to use speaking as a therapy. And what I found was by sharing my experiences as a big man in 2012, we didn't do that kind of stuff, that by being vulnerable and by being authentic, and again, those words have been hijacked a lot recently, but in its truest sense, it builds a bridge of trust and rapport with people, a relationship which is far deeper based on honesty by sharing your experiences. So people started to share their stuff with me. And it was at that point I started to realize actually I can never be a coach or a counselor. Massively empathic. I felt overwhelmed with everyone sharing their stuff. But the second thing was I just felt massively saddened actually. Why is it that when we need help, we don't reach out for help? But in the vast majority of cases, you'll be the first person to jump to the aid of somebody else. And that's the reason why I do what I do. And it all started there. I guess the rooms got bigger, the audiences got bigger, and the rest, as they say, is history. What I wanted to share for today's session, that kind of how to forge ahead, is things that I've learned along the way working in this space over the past 12 years, which will be complementary to the amazing learnings and tools and facts and figures that are out there around mental health and well-being, to give you a more 4D perspective, to give you a more human-led perspective and a lived experience perspective. And one of those things for me is recognizing that the same energy, the same force, the same situation can happen to two different people and have two massively different outcomes. The same energy is to be the destructive force in somebody's life can also be the catalyst to create positive change. It also means for you as decent human beings, as I've been assured you all are, you can do everything possible to try to support people, but it may still not be good enough because it's on the receiver and where they are. But very often there's this huge, again, this feeling of guilt and overwhelm when we can't reach out and help people the way that we want to. Everyone has a different impact when it comes to solutions. And also there's no one fix all for anything or anyone. And certainly my journey along the way has proven that to me too. It's been a whole collection of things from medication, coaching, counseling, therapy, reading, personal development that has been my comeback, not just one thing. I think the other terminology is a huge problem when it comes to mental health. The amount of people, actually happened to me this week. I was speaking at the CIPD Festival of Work in London. Somebody said to me, Nick, I have mental health. Yes, absolutely you do. 100% of us do. Whether it's good or bad, that's a whole different thing. And also it's a million miles away from mental illness. So if they mean they have poor mental health, absolutely that could be a challenge. But I like to see mental health as a muscle, something we can exercise and nurture and nourish and care for every single day to give ourselves the best chance of being smarter, stronger, happier, more successful, whatever those really subjective terms means to you. Even if it's in between coaching, counseling, therapy, medication, whatever you need at that point, to kind of push on through. So if we start to use the term mental health neutrally and respectfully, we actually change cultures almost instantly. One of the main drivers why I'm still very passionate about what I do and curious about what I do is actually why do we all do what we do? How do we act and why do we act the way that we do? And purely based on conversations I've had over the past 11, 12 years now working in this space, in the vast majority of cases, if not all of them, it comes down to conditioning, narrative and perspective. So conditioning, we become a product of our environment. I was speaking at a police conference in January, and it became very apparent that very often, for example, the police force are not dealing really with the person that's in front of them. They're dealing with the environment that that person's come from. So it becomes a bigger challenge. So we do become a product of our environment in that sense. Our narrative is not about how we talk to other people necessarily. It's not about how other people talk to us. That's very much a reflection. It's about how we talk to ourselves. Do you reaffirm limiting beliefs? Do you talk yourself into a losing game by default? Because we're kind of hardwired to do that. And that's the bit I try and focus on. The final piece in the jigsaw is perspective. Now, your perspective is shaped by especially right now, your choice of politics, your choice of religion, spirituality, the universe, being a Jedi, being a Bristol Rovers fan. Don't recommend that one unless you want grey in your beard. But all of the things that shape your world belief mean that you'll never see the world exactly as somebody else does. And it shapes the way that you go forward into the world. So if you look at the pandemic, for example, and again, this isn't about the politics or the pandemic necessarily, it's about the impact of repeated messaging. So as somebody was shielded through the pandemic, this was the sign that I saw on the press conference at 5:30 every night. And for 8 months, that's kind of what I saw. And in October 21, when I first flew to an event, which is something I do all the time, I saw danger everywhere where I never saw danger before. Look at that guy with a mask on, look at that guy without a mask on, look at those people social distancing, look at those people not social distancing. Suddenly there was a lot of fear where there was none before, because the impact of any form of repeated messaging has an effect on us. And the impact for me of this was inside is safe and outside isn't. So actually it changes the way that we go forward. It's really important to recognize the impacts of what goes into our eyes and ears and how it affects our day-to-day life. I guess it's the same challenge. If I ask you to watch Sky News, other channels are available, for 24 hours, you're going to feel worse 24 hours time than you do right now, because let's face it, the two things that sell are sex and fear, and very often it's not the good stuff that's reported. If you look at the conflict in Ukraine, I have clients in Ukraine who are dealing fantastically well, amazingly well with the conflict that's going on right outside the door right now. I have clients in Poland who are not dealing with it as well, potentially, because they have the threat of potential conflict. Now, that's an interesting one. We can deal with fact, even if it's big and hairy and scary. We can deal with fact, even if it's gone on right outside our door. What we cannot deal with is fear. False evidence appearing real. We kind of talk ourselves into that losing game. We need to find closure on challenges, and certainly for the longest time that was not something that was present in my life. So for you, again, a very simple but humorous example: if you've ever had a row with your partner or a close friend by text message, iMessage or WhatsApp, the three dots causes far more anxiety than the actual conclusion to that conversation, I guarantee you. So as a general rule of thumb in life, skip the three dots, go straight for closure, and I think you'd be far better off. If anyone has ever explored NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, you'll recognize this image. For me, this is a great example of perspective. So the closer you are to the side of this huge grey elephant, all you see is wall-to-wall grey leather. That is your experience of the world, until you take a step back, and then you start to see the bigger picture. You see, there's a problem, though, that, for example, with myself in my professional training going up through my 20s, I was told to lead through instruction. You tell people what to do and I'll do it. And if they don't do it, you do it louder. Breaking news doesn't work, by the way. Now more than ever, it's your ability to take a step back, your ability to show emotional leadership and to show compassion with people. That's kind of the way forward now, to see the fact that you'll never see the world exactly as somebody else does. And also recognize that we are the first people to stand in our own way. So kind of post-lockdown for myself, I was weighing in at 27 stone. I really wanted to do something to kind of improve my health and obviously lose some weight for me as well. And that's kind of my choice, of course. And I thought, okay, what should I do? Which, by the way, is not a good thing. Shoulds and coulds are not a good thing. But what should I do? It's easier to give advice and take your own, trust me. Well, I should go to the gym. Yeah, maybe I should go to the gym. So 10 to 6 on a Monday morning, I woke up, I went to the gym. And it took me till Wednesday morning to realise I hated the gym. I was walking around with a towel and a water bottle, like the person in the office with the high vis and the clipboard, looking busy, not really doing anything. And then I thought, actually, I need to ask myself the question, what do I love to do? Because if this isn't working for me, the reality is we only ever follow through on things that we're emotionally connected to. Emotional connection drives everything that we do, and that's the biggest learning curve for me along the way. So what do I love doing? Well, I love swimming. Absolute passion, love swimming. Okay, so why don't I go swimming? There's a clear and present option. Remember what I said at the beginning. You can have the right option, it will choose the right outcome, but I was standing in my own way. Okay, so why don't I go swimming? Honestly, body image. I didn't want to get this out semi-naked in front of a room full of strangers. I was standing in my own way. So on day 4, I turned right for the pool instead of left for the gym. I took my clothes off, not all of it, that'd be weird, even for where I live. And then I jumped in the pool. And not only did nobody care, but the other crazy people to get up at 10 to 6 in the morning swam over to say hello. And suddenly I had community. I was doing something that I chose to do, something that I loved to do, and it was producing a positive result. So asking yourself the question, actually, what am I standing in my own way of, is a really healthy thing to set out on a mission to get to know yourself again. And when you do feel stuck in a rut, or if you do find yourself really caught in a moment and you feel maybe that you feel lost, that can be a very common word that I hear a lot from people. Having a 3-step process to create positive change is really, really useful. This has helped me through personal challenges. This has helped me through professional challenges. And it's very simple: acceptance. So anyone who's been through counseling or therapy, won't ask for a show of hands. That'd be a really weird high five, wouldn't it? Woo! You'll know that the toughest thing to find, but the first thing to find, is acceptance. So fully accept that everything that you've ever done before, everything you've ever said, everyone that you've ever been, has led to exactly where you are today on this call with me. That is the undeniable truth, because we are here. However, sometimes acceptance is tough and acceptance is brutal, because some of your experiences have been painful or frustrating or challenging or not of your choosing. But without acceptance, you build a future based on fear. With acceptance, you build a future based on the concept of it's what you do next that counts. It was at this point that I needed that professional help to kind of guide me through that. And I know some of the environments that I work in, and I do work in some environments which are challenging. I work with care leavers, I work with victims of domestic abuse, work in the prison system. I know experiences have been brutal for a lot of people, but acceptance still needs to be found. And that's a crucial key for me. The survival piece is actually, how long can you stay there once you realize you want to make a change? So if there's any form of change or transformation you want to make, give yourself a time frame, because then we start to move through this. You see, as students, is an interesting one with your community, that you do this with your projects and your exams and your submissions. You work through a process, but why do we not apply the same logic to our personal challenges? So you have the skill set, it's just reapplying them to our personal challenges. The final piece is evolution, which essentially is changing our relationship with change. We automatically assume change is going to be negative. If I told you there was going to be a big change tomorrow, you think it's going to find you alone, punch you in the face and run away. It's kind of what we feel about change. But the reality is, and take it from an old guy looking back, it's only been through the periods of chaos that the magic has happened. It's only been through the periods of adversity the most exciting things have happened. But here's the thing, you never see it at the time. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, but you never see it at the time. It's when people lose hope, or the hope of something better, that's when the world gets quite a dark and dangerous place for a lot of people. In that moment, asking yourself, even in the darkest of moments, the most challenging situations, asking yourself, what does this make possible? You see, attitude is everything and opportunities are everywhere. It's only when we stop looking, that's when it becomes a problem for a lot of people. I'm not going to talk about boundaries too much, because I think you can find great stuff from coaches and people that do this stuff professionally. But the one thing I do want to mention about boundaries, because I guarantee if I spoke to all of you individually, you all know how you want to live, learn and work. But actually boundaries aren't your problem. The problem is communicating your boundaries to manage the expectations of everybody else. Because there's everybody's expectations on you, which causes you the stress and causes you the anxiety in life. This is Mark Twain, not Albert Einstein, as somebody said last week, but paraphrasing, some of the worst things in my life never actually happened. Now, how true is that? We constantly create anxiety about things that never happen. I do a roadshow with an amazing neuroboffin called Helen, and she is solution focused. She's very curious and specialist around the brain and how the brain works and everything else. And she actually says that when we create anxiety or worry or fear about a situation that's not even happened, we damage ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally as if it has happened. We find it really hard to have that disconnect between reality and not reality. So I do think we need to fact check our anxieties. On day one of my recovery back in 2012, I kept something called a worry journal. If you've heard of a gratitude journal, it's a very twisted version of that. I wrote down everything that made me highly anxious or the byproducts of high anxiety. So jealousy and insecurity were huge in my world, defensive and aggressive behavior, hypersensitivity, still my biggest red flag now, if I'm honest. So lots of different challenges that are linked with high anxiety. And on day one, there were 128 entries. Welcome to GAD and OCD, my friends. But of those 128 entries, 2 weeks later, none of them happened. So over a period of a month, just thousands of things I'm creating and damaging myself that never actually happen. So again, set out on a mission to prove yourself wrong and fact check your anxieties. Think about something you're anxious about today. Ask yourself the question, is this fact? And if it is fact, skip the 3 dots, go straight for closure. But if it's not fact, it's going to be the narrative that you're choosing to accompany that situation. Better conversations around mental health for me are crucial. I'm not a medical professional. I never profess to be. It's my upfront agreement with my audiences. I'm not there to be the solution in that sense. But understanding how to have conversations around this, even as a non-medical professional, is so important. Understanding that people share with people because they have trust and rapport. Understanding our role isn't to fix people, even if we are medical professionals, actually, in that sense, nor is our role to hide from people either. One of the most important things I wanted to include, because we haven't got a lot of time today, so any questions you have around this, please do ask afterwards or away from here. I'll give you a place to reach me. But one of the things I did want to throw in is the barriers. Why don't people engage in help? Now, there's 3 reasons for me. I think the first one, especially at the moment, is cost. People don't necessarily know how much help is in terms of counselling, therapy, whatever they need. So that's certainly a barrier. The second barrier is our conditioning. So I remember being told by my dad, don't trust work with your personal stuff. That's conditioning. That's a generational hand-me-down. It wasn't done with any cruelty or intent by any stretch. But that was a reason why I didn't reach out for help. So actually, what are you telling yourself? And the final one is anonymity. People are still terrified about reaching out for help because they don't want to be dismissed or judged or ridiculed, because there is still that overhang, this taboo, this stigma hanging over the mental health space, or we're encouraging people to reach out and there's not necessarily going to be the solution there to catch them. So build this playbook about how you can have better conversations with people around this stuff. One of the most underused resources, by their own admission, I have a very close relationship with the Samaritans, is, in their words, one of the most underused resources, because people automatically feel that Samaritans are for people that are at a point of crisis, maybe having suicidal thoughts, but they're actually there to support anybody who's just not feeling life right now, or maybe experiencing things like loneliness or grief or other challenges that life can throw our way. So do add this phone number to your phone book. Is also a great signposting tool. So if you're a leader of people or going to be helping other people around you, by having this number in your phone book, you automatically have help. And of course, get to know what's available from within the university, because your fastest route to help will be through the university. So do get to know that well in advance, way before you actually need it. I remember walking into a law firm in London and the receptionist quite brutally said, I expected you to look like Joe Wicks. Oh, fat Joe Wicks, I'll take that. But I think therein lies the problem when it comes to mental health and well-being. We automatically assume that it's going to be dry and clinical and heavy, or it's going to be fluffy and hippie. I'm going to light a bonfire in a car park outside, run around naked with a joss stick in my mouth. I'm up for anything, by the way. And sorry to put that vision in your head before lunch. I do apologise. If you really want to break it down to its nuts and bolts, these 10 things make up how you feel on any one given day. If you really want to get laser focused with your self-development, every Monday morning, grab yourself a coffee, grab yourself a tea, score these out of 10, 10 being excellent, 1 being dire. Where am I on these things right now? And for that week ahead, you focus on the lowest scoring element. I am not the guy to talk about nutrition or hydration or sleep or exercise or all the good stuff. As a disclaimer to the wonderful team here, do all those things, are amazing. But there could be things that you're missing. And that's what I want to throw into the mix as well. Again, set out on a mission to get to know yourself again. I'm a big fan of mind mapping. I think there's an OCD tendency in that to be, plus my Spotify playlists are the neatest ever. However, mind mapping is an amazing thing. So get a big sheet of paper. I'm an ex-stationer, so I'm still paper-based most of the time. Put your name in the middle of it and put all the parts and players of your life, and then write your emotional connection to all of these things, and actually be amazed at how much you get to know yourself again. If you don't feel that your thoughts are safe on paper, then apps are fantastic, Face ID, password protected apps. But go through that process, because the 4 questions I want you to ask yourselves away from here is: what in your life nourishes you, and what in your life depletes you? Who in your life nourishes you, and who in your life depletes you? This isn't about eradicating the negative. It's just starting to get to know yourself enough to be fully self-aware and to take a proactive approach to resilience. Because I guarantee the one thing that I've noticed most about working outside of the UK in different parts of the world compared to the UK, our approach to resilience here tends to be that we run ourselves into the ground until we're absolutely shattered, and then we try and work out how the hell we're going to come back from this. By taking a proactive approach, you take a really good stance. So I love music. Music is so powerful. Music is one of the things I think we could all hack into. We could change our state instantly. I'm a big fan of country music. It's not all about losing your doggy and missus. A lot of it is, to be fair. A lot of it isn't. But music is so, so powerful. What goes into your eyes and ears actually has a massive impact on us. I want to do a little exercise with you in a minute. Please do use the chat box, because I want to do something for you as a takeaway from here. So I'm going to set a little scene. I am now the MC of the O2 Arena in London. 20,000 people have paid their hard-earned money to come in here. You do your thing, whatever your thing is. You sat back in the green room, sipping a beer, sipping a Prosecco. You can hear your crowd chanting your name. I walk onto stage and introduce you. Your crowd erupts. You begin to walk on, and your music kicks in, that walk-on song, the one that lifts you, to get you at peak state, gets you up and firing. In the chat box, I want you to put the name of the song and the artist. And what I'm going to do for you is to build a playlist of your walk-on choices for the team to distribute for you, a Spotify playlist. So the very least you'll get from giving me 45 minutes of your time is a banging playlist. So if you do that for me, I'm going to wrap up the session shortly. So if you can do that for me in the chat box, just the name of your walk-on song and the artist, and you can leave the rest with me. Energy is everything. By the way, I couldn't be friends with these people. They got far too much energy for my liking. I've got barely enough energy for this, let alone that. But the point is that we are a product of our environment. There's an American author called Jim Rohn who says you are the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. His reasoning for this is if you've got a group of 5 friends or 5 colleagues, and one of them is highly aggressive, the dynamic of the group raises to meet the aggressor. So everybody is in a negative state. A strong emotional leader, for example, will have a really positive impact. So we do become a product of our environment in that sense. I also want you to ask yourself the question, do you feel that you live, learn and work in an environment which supports you to have an opinion and follow that opinion through to an outcome, even if you're going to be wrong? Do you feel that you can say no to people you want to say no to yes to people that you want to say yes to? Because to me, the reality is, if you're not living a life, having a career, having a profession, having an education, having a business on your terms, whose terms are you doing this on? Because by default, you'll be doing it by somebody else's terms. And that thought's enough to scare me daily to keep pushing and keep developing. And when you do take on any big challenges, mental health included, but lots of different challenges we have in life, it looks big and hairy and scary. Break it down into its smallest part, into marginal gains, daily, incremental, consistent changes. Every day, do something a little bit to change the bigger picture result. Same process as couch to 5K. You run a little bit longer, a little bit faster every day, and eventually you run 5K. Apparently, I give up at week 4, but apparently you do run 5K at the end of it. And this is Tula, my little Shih Tzu. Everything that we do is fueled by emotional connection. Everything that we do. So really get to know yourself again, using that mind map exercise that I know, that I explained. And for the country fans out there, I'm hoping there's going to be at least one more than me. There's a great track by Gary Allan, "Every storm runs out of rain." I think we genuinely need to know that right now. I love that line. That every storm you've ever been through, you at least survive, because you're here. Most of the time you thrive. Most of the time you learn. Most of the time you evolve. But you never see it at the time. Again, attitude is everything and opportunities are everywhere. It's when we stop looking, therein lies the problem. It's when people lose hope or the hope of something better, that's when the world can get a dark and dangerous place for a lot of people. Our role actually is just to give people hope, to have conversations with them, to signpost them to a better direction. And I think that's the best we can all do to support people, to have better conversations around this stuff. Keep it human, keep it vulnerable in a safe way, of course, and have authentic conversations and really take the filter off of life. And if you do want to reach out to me, by the way, TikTok and Instagram are both off the cards again now. Is a mental health thing. I got fed up with it after 2 weeks, so I've taken them off. I am on LinkedIn if you are on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel as well. But if you do want to reach out to me confidentially, it's nick@nickelston.com. I'll be very happy to hear from you if you have any questions away from here. But I'm going to come back to the room now. Thank you so much for listening to my session. I'll take any questions you have as well. So I'll be coming back to the room now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. That's really, really brilliant. So much of my own experience I can sort of relate to there as well. So we've got a couple of questions that came in previously, and then there's a few that have come in through today. So our first question was, what is your best practical tip for dealing with feelings of anxiety?
I think it's something that the fact checking definitely is up there. But there's something I developed actually through it's through my OCD actually, that everything that I'm kind of feeling, am I feeling this through obsession, as in is this kind of mentally fueled? Am I feeling, or even making a decision, am I doing this through compulsion? So am I doing this to people please, to keep up with the Joneses, that kind of stuff? Or actually am I doing it through choice? And amazingly, you do little through choice. It's always fueled by those two other things. So this certainly isn't hallelujah, this guy's cured. I manage my stuff daily like everybody else as to varying degrees of success. But that really works for me. Actually, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the real reason here why I'm doing what I'm doing? And if I'm quite honest, it's got better since I started doing that, but very often it's fueled by obsession or compulsion.
Fabulous, thank you. And our second question is, looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, that's a great question. You got me need more of an hour for that. I think it's really difficult actually, because I think that without the early stuff, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, which I just didn't think was going to be a thing. So it's really difficult. So I would say, look, it's just going to be okay. And it's okay to wing it as well. I think that's the other, and I mean wing it in the nicest possible way. You look at, obviously, given the audience today with education, absolutely aspire to do everything that you want to do and to be who you want to be. But if that doesn't work out, there could be something even more exciting and better around the corner as well. But very often we put so much pressure on ourselves and external pressure that if we don't achieve that one thing, we just feel that it's a waste of time. Or I'm done with that, I'm done with him, I'm done with her. Very often you just never see it, and I quite like that. I think that's the chaos coming back in though. I love the chaos.
Yeah. So a couple of questions have come in from today from the session. So Katie's asked, what is your favourite thing about being a lived experience influencer? So she's a suicide prevention influencer and enjoys making a difference and knowing that it's challenging decisions that can implement change and make services better for people to access and to get the support they need. So
yeah,
I would imagine that's probably the same for yourself.
It is, but again, I always say to people, and can I just say that the person who said that's amazing what they do, and again, very personal to me as well. That's really amazing what they do. I love that. I think the beauty is that lived experience to me is the perfect vehicle to drive engagement to the solutions, but it's not the solution. So I like knowing that I'm part of the reason why it gets people engaged in things that they wouldn't tend to be engaged with. That's kind of why I get airdropped into places, to engage people that don't tend to get engaged around this stuff. So that's the bit I like to achieve. And I think from a lived experience perspective, because ethically, morally, and for insurance purposes, I don't profess to be anything other than share an experience. It gives me so much collaboration with amazing solution focused people as well. And I think so it's knowing what your niche is within that as well, and actually really owning that niche.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think where we've all sort of been through those situations and we want to share that with the world, and it does make a massive difference. And I think the biggest thing that we learn as well through our learning is about ourselves, and it's probably the biggest thing that we can learn. I know for myself it was.
Yeah,
But obviously
absolutely.
um but Nicolette has asked, do you have any recommendations for any self development books? So is there anything in particular that you would recommend?
See, I'm not sure if anyone's going to get this, and any fans of personal development, I'm sure there'll be some of you get this. Most books that you read make you feel that if you don't do everything in this book, you're a rubbish human being, because everyone wants you to do it their way. I'm much more the opinion of building your own playbook, and I find inspiration in. Actually, most of my inspiration comes from I listen, and because I travel a lot, I do listen more than read. Listen to a lot of autobiographies. I try to listen to people that aren't like me, so I don't live in that echo chamber. I pick up different opinions and experiences and insights. That works for me. The one self-help, which actually is a better listen than it is a read, because by audiobook, the one I did like was How to Be Human by Ruby Wax, which was a three-way conversation between a Ruby Wax, a Buddhist monk, and a psychologist on what it was to be human. I really enjoyed that because it was a real three-way perspective on the topic. So yeah, I would just say autobiography is mainly a really good way to do that, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm not a big fan of the genre in that sense.
Yeah, I'm pretty much someone who's gone through life thinking I failed because I didn't get therapy. It didn't work. So I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
failed. But
yeah,
yeah, but no, I completely agree. It's about finding what works for you, isn't it?
absolutely.
So Karen has asked us, what when you're feeling down, how do you get yourself out of it? So is there any particular things that help you?
Yeah, I think for me, I like to see if you imagine yourself as a battery. So are you 10 out of 10 fully charged or 1 out of 10 running on fumes? But it's knowing what each of those cells means to you.
Mhm.
Because, for example, meditation looks very different in Yate, where I live, or Yate, in Sixty suburbia. It doesn't look like a Californian sunset and mountain ranges, that kind of stuff. So things like meditation, as much as they're fantastic for some people, very often I find things like gaming, like so I like open world gaming, for example, that can provide a meditative distraction. I think it's knowing that it doesn't. There's no one fix all for that sense, or no one fit all. No one fits all for that. See, it's finding your own way. So for me, gaming, I love. I said dogs and walking and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's your own little thing. Weirdly, being an introvert, and by the way, I just recharge in my own company. I love what I do, but there's a quiet, dark corner of the world I sit in afterwards and get my energy back. I'm quite introverted in my home time. So when I'm out there doing what I do, I quite like just being quiet here and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. So another question that we had, I think this one was received in advance. So how did your own experiences of anxiety and mental health shape your approach to public speaking? So I know you've covered some parts of that
Yeah,
today. So is there anything else?
I think it certainly forced me into a position where I started to say yes to opportunities and then worry about it later. I mean, that's kind of how it all started. According to Harvard, that public speaking is a greater fear than death. So we fear ridicule more than we do dying. We're screwed. See you later, guys. Thanks very much. But I think it's using it in your favour. So whether this week I was on stage in London, I always get anxious for 2.5 minutes, but is harnessing that anxiety to work in your favor. So there's a whole playbook of tools that I use to get myself ready to deliver at peak state, but then making sure that I've got the right tools to bring myself back down afterwards. I mean, that's a whole different presentation in itself, but if anybody wants to know that, then do drop me an email. I'll send you through what I've got on that. But it's just making sure that it's not a blocker. Same as being an introvert. None of these things are a blocker to standing up and speaking.
Mhm.
For me, in my years of coaching people to speak publicly, people aren't afraid of public speaking. It's far more human than that. What they're afraid of is rejection. They're afraid of being heckled or judged, or it's the same kind of fears that we experience when you actually get up and do it, and it becomes weirdly addictive. So I always say to people, never assume how you feel it's going to go. Just get up and experience it and see what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got one final question, which is coming
Sure.
from Pauline. So said used to be able to cope with crisis calmly, but they've got older and more emotional, so feel like they get knocked down a bit more. So any advice on sort of strengthening their emotional reactions?
Good question. I'm sure there is, but I can't think of anything right now. I'll always be honest with you. It's interesting because I do really resonate with that. And I'll be honest that I still I can deal with the big stuff really well now, but I do get sidetracked by the little stuff. On the same lines, you get 99 positive reviews and one negative review. Guess which one you focus on? It does take your emotion, it takes your energy and stuff. I certainly, from the research that I've done, there's a read by Elaine Aron, I believe, who's but the highly sensitive person. That could be worth a read. I think that's worth a read. But again, if Pauline, maybe it's my mum. My mum's called Pauline. So, mum, if you do want to let me know. If Pauline wants to drop me an email, I'll dig out some things that I could think could be really good content. So I'm always going to be honest with you, and if there's something I don't know, I'll just say I don't know, but I will find out for you for sure.
That's lovely, thank you. And I know we'll sort of put some of these things together and get those sent out. So if you can just pop your email maybe in the chat first of all, and just for now, and then
Absolutely.
or if you've got that there, we can get that set, and we'll get stuff sent out to students, and people will be able to re-watch this as well at a later date. But I just want to say thank you so much, Nick. Honestly, it's been a brilliant session, and I've absolutely loved listening to you. I could have sat here all day and had a conversation, but unfortunately we have to go. So, but honestly, thank you so much for joining us and for being so open and honest with us all as well. And it's definitely given us, I think, a lot to think about and a lot to take forward. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been a real pleasure. And if you could send me the song choices, I'll get that playlist designed for you as well.
Absolutely. I look forward to singing to all of those in my car as I'm coming up and down from Milton Keynes.
Enjoy. Thank you for hosting me, and enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. You take care. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.